They handed every kid a bright, shiny gift bag, every cousin except my son. He stood there, waiting, smiling just a little, the way he always does when he's trying to be brave. One by one, they passed out bags filled with toys, candy, custom t-shirts. His name was never called. Then my aunt, Loretta, smirked. "We saved the best for last," she said. She pulled out a small wrapped box and handed it to Jalen. He looked up at me first, like he always does when he's unsure. I nodded, because what else could I do? He opened it carefully, curious. Inside was a collar, a dog collar, black nylon, cheap, with a silver tag that read, "Property of Maya." The laughter started slow, then spread like wildfire across the patio. Some of the older kids clapped. A few of the adults chuckled under their breath. My cousin Tori leaned over to him and said, "Maybe your mom can train you better now." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I was frozen. My fingers tightened around my glass so hard I thought it would crack. Jalen's hands started to shake. He didn't cry. He just stood there, his head low, collar still in his lap. And then, right when I thought I'd reached the limit of my silence, the front door slammed open. Everyone turned, and that's when he walked in. The last person they expected. The one they had written off years ago. The one who changed everything. The invitation came the same way it always did, by group text with Loretta's name at the top and 25 people tagged beneath. She called it the Reynolds Family Bash, capital letters, confetti emojis, and an overused flyer graphic with dancing silhouettes that made it feel more like a nightclub event than a family reunion. I wasn't planning to go this year, not because I didn't have the time, not because I didn't want to see a few familiar faces, but because every time I show up at one of these reunions, I leave feeling smaller, like I've spent the day shrinking into the corners of conversations, watching the cousins trade inside jokes I was never part of, smiling when someone made a joke about me raising a boy on my own, laughing it off when they brought up my artsy little son and said things like, maybe he just needs to toughen up. But Jalen wanted to go. He always does. He doesn't remember the underhanded comments or the way Loretta looks at us like we're some kind of side project. All he remembers are the horses, the barbecue, and the one summer when Uncle Leon taught him how to ride a bike on that cracked concrete driveway. So I packed his favorite hoodie, the blue one with the fraying sleeves, and we made the drive to Birmingham. Loretta's house is the same as always, big, loud, and busy. She lives on 3 acres just outside the city. Wraparound porch, columns out front, American flag waving like it's a political ad. There's always music blasting from the speakers she had installed under the eaves, and the smell of overcooked ribs hanging in the air like it's part of the weather. Loretta greeted us with a wide smile, arms outstretched, perfume so thick it made my eyes water. "Well, look who finally made it," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Thought y'all got lost again." That was her way of saying, "You're always late," even though we were right on time. Jalen smiled up at her and said hi, clutching his sketch pad under his arm. He always brings it with him, like a security blanket. I felt his fingers tighten around mine just a little as we walked in. I gave his hand a squeeze back. Inside, it was chaos. Kids running between legs, cousins yelling across the living room, everyone trying to pretend we're one big happy family, even though half the people in that house haven't spoken to each other since the last bash. There's an unspoken hierarchy at these reunions, and Loretta sits right at the top. She calls the shots. She decides what games the kids play, who gets the best seat at the table, who helps clean up and who doesn't. Most people just go along with it because it's easier that way, easier to nod and laugh and pretend. We found a quiet spot on the back patio near the fence. Jalen pulled out his sketchbook and started drawing the barn across the field. He's always been like that, more interested in shapes and shadows than noise and games. He doesn't fit in with the other kids, but he doesn't really seem to care, at least not yet. I watched him from the folding chair, drinking sweet tea that tasted like syrup, trying to pretend this wasn't already exhausting. Then Tori walked past. She's Loretta's oldest granddaughter, 14 going on 30, with a phone glued to her hand and a mouthful of sarcasm. She glanced at Jalen's drawing, made a face, and whispered something to the 2 girls behind her. They giggled. I didn't say anything. I never do. Not here. Not around them. Because if you speak up, you get labeled difficult. If you call something out, you're the one ruining the vibe. It's easier to stay quiet, to play the part, to remind yourself that it's just one day, that you're here for the food, for the photos, for the scraps of connection that still exist in this family. But that silence started to weigh heavier than usual, because Jalen's getting older now. He's starting to notice the tone in their voices, the jokes that don't sound like jokes, the way he gets passed over for the water balloon toss, or the way Tori moves her chair when he sits down. And I'm starting to realize something. If I keep shrinking myself to keep the peace, he's going to learn to do the same. And I can't let that happen. Not again. Not this year. The first sign that something was off came when the music changed. Loretta always plays old-school R&B at these things. Earth, Wind and Fire, Anita Baker, maybe a little Marvin Gaye if the mood is right. But now, someone had put on this hyper bass-thumping party anthem. Loud, fast, out of place. That meant it was time for the kids' gift bags. It was a new tradition, started about 3 years ago. Loretta thought it would be cute to give out little summer starter packs to all the younger kids. Water guns, candy, sunglasses, cheap toys from the dollar store. Nothing fancy, just something to make them feel special. That's what she said, at least. But somehow, every year, it became less about the kids and more about the production. She'd call them up one by one, like she was hosting a game show, announcing each name with dramatic flair. Every cousin would get cheers, photos, and applause. Everyone would laugh. Parents would pretend not to care, even though we all knew we were being ranked, loudly, publicly. Jalen didn't understand that. He just wanted a toy and maybe a high five. He sat up straighter when Loretta clapped her hands together and yelled, "Okay, babies, come on down!" The crowd of kids gathered in a messy line on the patio. Jalen was at the end, holding his sketchbook close to his chest. I watched from the corner, my arms crossed, pretending I wasn't holding my breath. Loretta started calling names. "Micah, look at you, baby, you're getting so tall. Asia, my little fashion queen, come get your bag." Each time, a kid ran up, grinning, grabbed a neon-colored bag, and returned to the applause of cousins and uncles. Candy wrappers hit the ground within seconds. Tori was filming the whole thing on her phone like she was documenting some reality show. Jalen shifted from one foot to the other, still smiling, just barely. I started counting. 1, 2, 3. 11 bags handed out. Only one left on the table. Bright green, stuffed full, and neatly tied with a ribbon. He looked at me and smiled again, the way he does when he wants to be excited but isn't sure if he's allowed to be. Then Loretta said, "And last but not least, oh wait." She turned around, laughed to herself. "We actually saved the best for last?" She reached under the table and pulled out something wrapped in shiny silver paper, smaller, box-shaped. She handed it to Jalen with a smirk. "There you go, sweetheart," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This one's just for you." He opened it slowly. His fingers were careful, like he was unwrapping something important. Inside was a collar, a black dog collar. Cheap, stiff nylon with a silver tag dangling from the loop. He lifted it out with both hands, confused, turning it over to read what it said. Property of Maya. The world didn't go quiet. It got loud. The laughter started before I had time to react. Snickers from the kids, a few chuckles from the adults. One of the uncles barked like a dog, twice. Even Tori, recording from her phone, gasped and then burst into hysterics. Someone said, "Maybe now he'll listen better, huh?" And Loretta chimed in again. "Just a little reminder, Mama. You've got yourself a good boy. You just need a firmer grip." Jalen didn't move. He just stood there with the collar in his hands, his face blank. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Not at first. I sat frozen in my chair, my mind scrambling to make sense of it. My throat clenched, my fingers curled into fists. I looked at Jalen, and he wasn't crying, but his shoulders had dropped, his chin tilted down, and I knew that look. I've worn it myself. That's the look of someone who doesn't understand why they're the punchline. It's the moment you realize the people who are supposed to protect you think it's funny to watch you break. I stood up. That got their attention. A few people looked over, curious. I walked toward Jalen. I could feel every heartbeat in my chest like it was trying to tear through my ribs. My face burned. My hands shook. I wanted to grab that collar and throw it into the fire pit. I wanted to say something that would make every one of them feel as small as they just made him feel. But before I could speak, before I could even reach for him, the front door slammed open, and everything changed. When the front door slammed open, the entire patio went still. Plastic cups stopped mid-air. Forks froze halfway to mouths. The laughter that had erupted just seconds before died in one long, awkward breath. Jalen turned toward the sound, his small frame still holding that black collar like it might explain something. My stomach twisted. I felt the energy shift before I even looked up. There, standing in the doorway, was a man I hadn't seen in over 10 years. My father, Elias Jordan, the last person any of them expected. He was dressed in faded jeans and a white short-sleeved button-up. Nothing dramatic. But the second he stepped across that threshold, it felt like the entire house held its breath. His presence landed like thunder, quiet, deep, and impossible to ignore. Loretta's smile collapsed first. Then came the wide eyes. A muttered, "What the hell?" from one of the uncles near the grill. He didn't look at any of them. He looked straight at me. Then at Jalen. Then his eyes dropped to the collar. And that's when I saw it. His jaw set, shoulders stiffened, and his hands, big and rough from years of carpentry, clenched at his sides. My father wasn't a man of many words, but when he did speak, people listened. And when he was angry, you felt it before he said a thing. "What is that?" he said, voice low but sharp. No one answered. Elias walked down the steps, calm and slow like he was moving through a storm. He stopped beside Jalen, crouched down, and gently took the collar from his hands. He read the tag. His lips tightened. Then he stood, turned to face Loretta, and spoke with a steady, lethal calm. "You gave this to my grandson?" Silence. Loretta blinked, tried to recover her footing. "Now hold on, Eli, it was just a little joke." "Don't." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Don't you stand there and tell me it was a joke when the boy is standing here looking like he's the one who did something wrong." No one spoke. The cousins who'd laughed shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some of them had the decency to look away. Elias turned to Jalen and put a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't deserve that," he said. "None of this is your fault." Jalen nodded, just barely. His face was tight, eyes glassy but not crying. Then Elias reached into his bag. He pulled out a small wooden box and handed it to him. "This is what I brought for you," he said. "I didn't wrap it. I figured it didn't need to be dressed up." Jalen opened the lid. Inside was a leather-bound sketchbook with his name embossed on the front. Beneath it, a full set of charcoal pencils, blending stumps, and erasers in a lined velvet tray. Real artists' tools, not toys. "Your mom told me you like to draw," Elias said. "She said you see things differently. That's a gift. This is for you to keep seeing like that." Jalen ran his hand over the cover. He didn't say a word, but his whole body softened. He didn't flinch anymore. He just stood there, holding something that was finally, truly his. I looked at my father, this man who had once walked out of my life without saying goodbye, who hadn't been to a family gathering since the day he told Loretta she'd destroyed everything good about this bloodline. And I felt something crack open in my chest. He wasn't perfect. He'd made mistakes, left when I needed him, stayed gone too long, but in this moment, he saw my son, and he showed up. I stepped closer to Jalen and placed a hand on his back. Then I turned to Loretta. "I'm done letting you humiliate us in front of people who pretend they don't see it." She started to interrupt. I didn't let her. "I'm done smiling through it. Done coming here and watching my son shrink so you can feel big. We don't need this. We never did." For the first time ever, I watched Loretta take a step back. I didn't wait for permission. I picked up the collar, dropped it on the table, and took Jalen's hand. We walked toward the car, Elias trailing behind us. No one stopped us, because deep down, they all knew. The joke wasn't funny anymore. I expected someone to stop us. I expected a snide comment, a dismissive laugh, maybe Loretta calling out behind us with one of her fake sweet apologies, wrapped in sarcasm and pride. But no one said a word. We were halfway to the driveway when Jalen tugged gently on my hand. I looked down at him. He wasn't crying. He wasn't shaking anymore either. He was just quiet, still holding the sketchbook like it was a lifeline. He glanced back toward the patio. "Mom," he said, "are we really leaving?" His voice was soft, almost unsure, like he wanted to believe it but couldn't quite trust that it was real. "Yes, baby," I said. "We're leaving." He nodded, then looked down at the sketchbook again. That's when Elias stepped beside me and gently cleared his throat. "I parked out front," he said. Wasn't sure I'd be staying long. I raised an eyebrow. You came here to stir the pot? He gave a low grunt of a laugh. I came because you texted me last week, and something about the way you asked. I don't know, I figured maybe it was time. He looked at Jalen and then back at me. I knew Loretta would be Loretta, but I wasn't expecting that. That collar? That's beyond cruel. He didn't have to say it out loud, but I could feel the guilt behind his words. Clung to him like the heat. Maybe it had taken something that ugly, that public, to wake him up. Or maybe he just needed to see it for himself, that I'd been raising a good boy in a family that treated us like a running joke. We reached the edge of the gravel driveway, and I turned back one last time. The patio was quieter now. Loretta had gone inside. Some of the cousins were pretending to be busy with food. A few watched us with faces I couldn't quite read. No one came after us, and then, from the side of the house, I saw someone step out. It was Tori. She wasn't laughing anymore. She walked toward us slowly, her phone gone, her hands empty. Her face wasn't smug or superior. It was confused, embarrassed, maybe even a little scared. She stopped a few feet away and looked at Jalen. I didn't know they were going to do that, she said, the collar. I thought it was just going to be like, I don't know, a joke. Jalen didn't say anything. He just looked at her, expressionless. Then she turned to me. I'm sorry. I didn't let her off the hook, but I nodded. Tell him, I said. She looked back at Jalen, swallowed hard, and said, I'm sorry. He blinked, then looked down at his sketchbook again. He didn't answer, but that was okay. He didn't have to. We got in Elias's truck, an old F-150 that smelled like sawdust and gasoline, and headed down the long dirt drive. Jalen sat between us, quiet, flipping open his new sketchbook. The pages were crisp, untouched, full of possibility. For a few minutes, no one spoke. The sun had started to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the windshield. The further we drove, the lighter I felt, like we were finally putting miles between us and years of silence. Then Elias spoke. I used to think walking away was easier than fighting. Your mama, she was the one who kept us together. When she passed, I figured it wasn't my place anymore. I stared out the window. You were wrong, I said. I know. He glanced at Jalen. I don't want to miss anything else. Jalen didn't look up, but I saw a small smile touch his lips. Then don't, I said. And just like that, something began to shift. Not everything was healed. Not all the pain was erased. But in that truck, with the evening light pouring in, something new took root. Jalen turned to the first page and began to draw. We didn't go back to the reunion that day, or the next year, or the year after that. Loretta didn't reach out. No apology, no follow-up. Not even one of her backhanded, didn't mean nothing by it texts she's known for. But I didn't expect one, and I didn't need it. Some people carry pride like armor, and Loretta's been wearing hers so long I don't think she remembers how to take it off. Jalen never asked to go back. He didn't ask why they did it. He never even brought up the collar again. But something in him shifted that day. He didn't shrink. He didn't break. He just got quiet in a different way. Older, sharper, more aware. The kind of quiet that comes when you stop looking for people to choose you and start choosing yourself instead. A few days after we got home, I found him at the kitchen table with the sketchbook open. He had drawn the porch, the table with the gift bags, every kid frozen mid-laughter. Loretta, with her hand on her hip and that smirk she always wears like lipstick. The details were brutal, honest, raw. But in the corner of the page, he had drawn himself, not as the boy holding the collar, not standing small at the edge. He drew himself walking away, and beside him, two figures, me and my father. I didn't say anything at first. I just sat down beside him and looked at it, the lump in my throat rising like a wave I couldn't hold back. He finally spoke. I drew it the way it should have felt, he said. And in that moment, I knew he understood something it had taken me 3 decades to learn. Family isn't blood. Family is who stands up for you when the laughter turns cruel. It's who steps forward when others step back. It's who teaches you that you don't have to earn dignity. It's already yours. That drawing became the first page in a series. Jalen started a collection called What I Saw, scenes from memory recreated through his lens. Some were painful, some were beautiful, but all of them were real and honest and powerful. We framed that first one. It hangs in our living room now, above the fireplace where our Christmas stockings go, beside pictures of birthdays, hikes, and simple days when we're just us. Jalen doesn't ask about the cousins anymore. He doesn't miss the gift bags or the porch or the parties. But he remembers Elias, the man who showed up when no one else did. Elias kept his word. He came around more after that day, slowly at first, Sunday visits, calls on school nights, awkward birthday cards. He apologized to me, properly in quiet moments that mattered. Not with grand speeches, but with presence, with consistency. The day he sat beside Jalen at his first student art show, beaming with pride, I realized just how much one moment can reroute a lifetime. As for me, I changed too. I stopped playing small to keep the peace. I stopped letting silence swallow me every time someone crossed a line. That day on the patio, I didn't just walk away from Loretta's party. I walked away from a version of myself that I didn't need to carry anymore, the version that kept my head down. That smiled through disrespect. That told my son to be patient when what he needed was protection. Now, when Jalen looks at me, he doesn't just see his mother. He sees someone who showed up for him when it counted. And I see a boy who knows his worth. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave. Not just survival, but pride. Not just endurance, but self-respect. So no, we don't go to the family reunions anymore. But every summer, we host something different. Just a few people, close friends, my dad, a couple neighbors, Jalen's favorite teacher. People who show up, people who listen, people who don't need a shared last name to feel like family. There are no callers, no jokes at anyone's expense, no hierarchy to impress, just laughter that feels good, just love that doesn't hurt. And every year, when it's over, I look at Jalen and remember the moment he stood there holding that sketchbook, the moment he saw cruelty and chose creation instead, the moment I realized we weren't the ones who should have been ashamed. They were, and we're better for walking away. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you of a moment when someone crossed a line or when you found the strength to walk away, I'd love to hear about it. Drop a comment below. Tell me what your turning point was, or tell me the lesson that stuck with you. You never know who might need to hear your story today. And if you know someone who's been made to feel small in the name of family or jokes, share this video with them. Remind them they're not alone. Make sure to hit the like button if this story meant something to you. It helps more than you think. And if you want to hear more real stories about resilience, identity, and the moments that change us, subscribe. We're building something honest here. Thanks for being here, truly. See you in the next one.